Hello and welcome to the Photo Files. This episode is on the Pentax 17 and it's a film roll review of T-Max 100. I picked up the Pentax 17 right when it came out and I had sort of these intentions of running every roll of commercially available film through the Pentax 17 so that I could see, how does this camera react to all the films that are available, on the commercial market in the US. I've decided I'm not going to do that because this little camera has kicked my ass, and not in a good way. A word of warning, this is one of the worst rolls I think I've taken in my life. If Henri Cartier-Bresson said that the first 10,000 photographs that you take are the worst, well, he hasn't met me because I've taken millions of photographs, and this is one of my worst rolls. So obviously, here we have just completely missed focus, and this was meant to be a plant. All right, so here we have my daughter at the park, and I've got 3 images in this series. At least I got this one in focus. So it's got that going for it. Her expression is not great, and there is, schmutz on her face, so that doesn't help. That is not the camera's fault. But even then, you can see there's kind of weird rendering and kind of weird distortion. Of the 3 images in this series, this one's not so bad. I'd say, as a father, I love my kiddo, and so this could be a picture that I hang on to. And again, if printed small, maybe you wouldn't notice that it's not too bad. Okay, back to the swing because we like punishment. Again, I think a big issue for me with this camera is just not feeling like I'm able to frame it, and that's a problem for me. This is not the worst. One thing I do think that it kind of excels at are photographs from this focal distance. I do think it has kind of a nice semi 3-dimensional quality to it. It's got a number of technical issues, I think, but there is something about it that I kind of like. It being a really simple lens design that can often deliver presence that is kind of hard to quantify, and it's because there's fewer elements in the lens, fewer corrections. Sometimes that can come across as maybe a higher degree of clarity or something like that. In this case, there is something about the way I shoot this camera and, kind of getting in close that I do kind of like. I just find I find the results pretty inconsistent. This would be a lot better if my wife hadn't been wearing this gigantic hat that completely dwarfed her head and went onto my daughter's head. So I feel like this would be a pretty good photo if it weren't for the hat. But because there is a hat in here, I don't know. It looks weird to me. Okay, all right. This one's not too bad. Like I said, it's almost sharp there, and that's just the kind of the challenge that I keep finding with this particular camera is just how hard it can be to nail focus on it, and I try not to be too hung up on that, but it's got to be at least an acceptable focus, and I have a hard time getting it even in that realm. Hard to tell if it's because of motion blur or just smearing at the bottom of this. So again, that's one of the challenges with this camera is that if you're trying to learn something from it, God help you, because it's not a solid enough piece of equipment to give you that kind of feedback, and you really just don't know what's happening outside of shooting in bulb mode. So that I would advise you to not take pictures when their expressions are that goofy. Here we go. So here we have a very artistic image. This could go in the liner notes of her debut album, No, I Don't Want to Go to Sleep. Again, almost in focus, almost a good moment. The frustration of this camera just kind of multiplies. So again, we've just got to get that picture of the kid on the swing mid-flight, right? Nothing will be more interesting than that once we do finally nail it, right? Much better focus, but, pretty dorky expression. I do, again, the out-of-focus rendering is, it's kind of interesting. It has a very old-world quality to it, but you need some new world qualities too. Again, I just really botched the framing on this badly. Eyes half closed. And it gets to a challenge. Another challenge with this camera is the shutter feel. What shutter feel? It's garbage and very, very difficult to have any kind of relationship. It's closed off. It's not emotionally available. All right, so again, kind of a nice expression, but I don't know. Composition's weird. Focus is missed. Ah, come on, you know. So here we are. This is, again, one of those places where I do, again, I mean, this is not a good photograph by any means, but there's something about, again, being about this distance from the subject and at a certain angle. There's a quality to its perspective that I still kind of like. Boy, could have been nice with a good smile. Focus is all right. More schmutz on her face. You know, this one, all right, it's kind of cute. Need to Photoshop off the schmutz. But if I do that, this one, again, may have something going for it. It's not great. It does tell the truth about a certain kind of expression that she is trying to communicate. Is it one that we want to remember? Question mark. Okay, so not bad. Again, this is where I do feel like it's got nice rendering, and I think T-Max is a pretty good choice for this camera because you've got such a small negative, but a pretty good lens, and so you want a film that has a lot of detail and a pretty good wide range of tones, and so T-Max is pretty good at that. Again, this would be a more interesting picture if it were in focus, but it wouldn't be that interesting. So this one's not too. There's a few of these pictures here on the slide, and this is where I do think, all right, finally I did get a couple of shots that I like, and this one, the kiddo's nicely framed, good pretty decent expression. Wife is tired. That's honest. So I think we're gonna say, yeah, this is nice, and as you can see, this is not the simplest from a metering perspective, and it does it pretty well here. I would say that overall, I want to say the meter is better than a coin toss, and I think that's true. Sometimes it seems hopeless, but I think it may just be the limitations of the camera itself. So, I don't know, nice tones here, pretty nice rendering. I'll give this one could have some use. So out of 25 images so far, I've got one or two keepers maybe. Again, this is where I'm talking about getting this certain distance. It's probably about 5-6 feet from where she is here. And the thing that it's got going for it is that because you can't see through the lens and you're trying to frame it and you're kind of like, I don't know what I'm getting here, you do shoot a little differently. And just the fact that it forces you to photograph things so differently, you will probably end up with images from a perspective that you wouldn't quite have taken otherwise. And this is one of those. And I think, this shows a nice moment. The other nice thing about this camera is that it is so simple, and you can shoot in a very uninhibited way or just try things. They're probably not going to succeed, but every once in a while you got one. So hey, here's two shots that I like out of 20 something of them. Again, these are tricky metering situations, and this is no exception here. Didn't quite get it. Yeah, again, kind of nice perspective here, but it's not super flattering on the kiddo, and she's still got schmutz on her face. Okay, next here. Boy, look at that. Modern art masterpiece. So I took 4 images here. This is one area where I really struggled, as you can see. So it has a macro mode on this camera that, it's pretty cool. You can use the camera strap as your measuring device, and you can see just how well it works. I was focus bracketing this. These are a badge on the Lotus Amira that my friend had parked at my house for a moment. Now, I will say that this, so out of 4, this is the best focus that I got, and at least, some of the lettering's in focus. I do like the range of tones, so I think it's got that going for it. And aside from that, pretty nice rendering at this focal distance. So I think there's value in it. It's just it's again hard to nail. So, but we'll say this is an okay shot. It is sort of in focus. So that's 3 shots at about 30. We are at 10%, but it's just in terms of a hit rate, about 10%. It's frustrating. And I don't know, shooting 72 frames and getting, 7 or 8 good ones is just, I don't know. It makes you want to rethink your life. Okay, so I've got 5 images here in this sequence, and nice little moment, but, the framing is terrible and not sharp, so even worse. Yep. So this one, not too bad. I like the motion blur. I like the smear down there. Her expression's pretty good. Mom's expression's pretty good. So we'll say 4. Got 4 shots that we like here, and then it's okay. But again, it's just there's too much. Looks like it's probably due to motion blur, but I can't figure out why that would be the case. There's plenty of daylight here, and so if my daughter's in focus and then all the stuff on the side is, how slow of a shutter speed was going on here? We'll never know. And I think it's just important to resist the temptation of saying that, okay, well, it's not too bad, so it's a keeper. It's like, not a keeper. Again, not a bad moment, but my kiddo's got her eyes closed and the metering was, all off here anyway. Nope. Hast thou considered letting me watch Bluey on the tablet? It's interesting, as you go back and look at pictures of your kids, it's like at first I didn't love this one, but it's kind of cute. Again, almost in focus. And then the other challenge is that it's with a negative this small. It's just really challenging to even know, is the image that I got realistically as good as I could expect for this camera, or did I just am I just a total loser? Because it's a very small frame, so it's never going to be that sharp anyway. It's very frustrating because it's hard to tell what went wrong so that you can improve next time. Okay, so here we've got, again, like I said, I tend to focus bracket when I'm shooting this camera. So, got in focus this time, but I don't know. Do we need to remember this moment? It's okay. She's looking at a flower. See? It's, all right. And again, it's got kind of an interesting perspective from about this distance. That's the one thing I do kind of like about it. But again, I feel like I'm looking for reasons to like it, and just give me a good camera and I'll be much, much happier. I knocked the crap out of that one. Okay. And again, here it's what's in focus. When you're not sure, that's a bad sign. But, again, here you can see tones are nice. So again, I would love for this to be better than it is. Aw. And boy, just, I don't know. I just feel like it's not the kind of expression I'm really, really after. And again, the schmutz on her face. Clean that off and we got a better image, but still, it's not that great. And again, nice and blurry. Check. Blurry yet again. So let's see. I took about 4 of these that are kind of portraits. Again, from a pretty close up, and so again, it does have a nice. It's got some out of focus qualities that are not too bad, because most of it's out of focus. In all seriousness, given that it is a small negative and this is not a fast lens, the fact that it has some background blur is not bad. But even if this had been in focus, it would have sucked. This one I do like, and I think when I get an image like this, it just makes me further frustrated with the camera because it's clearly possible. We have pretty good detail here. Eyelashes are pretty sharp and the hair is pretty sharp. Clearly it is capable of delivering, a pretty decent image. And, I like the 3-dimensionality of it. I like the tone. I really like, everything about it. And so this, maybe 5 images I like, and this is around image 50. So still hitting 10%, but do I feel good about it? No, I feel dirty. Yeah, not much of an expression there. And boy, just nope. Nope. Yeah. This is the kind of photo you think is interesting when you are a first-year photography student. Anyway, the out-of-focus area is kind of neat, but mostly this is an image that just is dizzying and confusing, and you ask yourself, why? Why did I take it? I think at the time I was curious, partially I was shooting this roll with a review in mind, and so I was just trying things out. We've got decent sharpness on some of the flowers here, but it's, you don't feel good looking at this photo, in my view. Ah, yes, the key fob to the Lotus Emira. You can just see how in focus I was able to get it. Again, this is the issue with the macro function, is that it actually requires very precise distance, and as cute as a hand strap is in doing this measurement, it's not accurate enough, and it's not clear where it really should be placed. So let's see, I took 4 images of this. So this is the engine cover on the Emira, and so as you can see, did not get it in focus that time, nor this time. Did get 1, and so this is obviously much better. Focus is nice and sharp. Tones are good. Really no notes on this one. This image doesn't say a whole lot. It's not that interesting, but it's but it's pretty cool. And so I'll say that's a keeper. I mean, I guess it's all relative, right? I mean, often the keepers are kind of relative to the other images that on our roll, and it's we should fight that tendency because that's no way to live. Pardon me. Oh my. There I am. Okay, so selfie in the mirror. So clearly we've moved on from my other location. I was on a shoot in California, and so this is the hotel room, and I thought, hey, why not a selfie in the mirror? Nope. Look at that fountain. Just terrible. This is up there for one of the worst photographs I've ever taken, and I should probably put this on the wall. It may have been an accident, but I can't remember for sure if it was an accident. But my gosh, that's, I like to remind myself that no matter how much you practice at photography and how much effort you put into it, it can still kick your ass. And that's what happened here. Okay, so walking around at the resort here, and I think it was at sunrise, and so I'm just walking around trying a few things out and see, there's a bird. How, what a statement. I wouldn't say this is terrible. I mean, it's not great, but it shows you just how like being in a pretty place can often make your pictures a whole lot better. Not great detail, but it does capture like, I do like the look of the clouds in this one. So that's something. This is a little better. I don't know if I was exposure bracketing or just taking a few shots since I don't know what the meter is going to do. Sometimes I might just take a few shots hoping that, it gets it right at some point. Wow. Just wow. This is where the focus really is very frustrating because this all should basically be at infinity, and it's soft all around. This one's a little better, but still not great. Again, the same problem here. I mean, I kind of like the overall image, but it's just the focus is not good. A little better here. I took two like this. I guess I must have bracketed or tried to trick the camera into giving me a little more exposure for this one. I'd say this image is pretty strong. It's obviously got some schmutz on it from that is definitely not my fault. That would come from developing. So. Which I did not do. These are scans from the darkroom, but like this is, that's all to be expected. You tend to, every once in a while you get some chemicals or something that didn't dry quite right. But all in all, I mean, this does capture, I mean, a very wide range of tones, sharpness kind of acceptable. What does it say? I don't know if it says anything, but it's definitely not the worst picture I took on this roll. I mean, boy, runner-up for worst photo I took on this roll for sure. And look at that. I mean, it's like two bad pictures in one. When I first got this camera, I think part of the reason that I picked it up was that I was just really interested in, a new film camera, and I had never shot a half-frame camera before. And I wanted to see, like, could this fit somewhere into my lifestyle? Could this fit somewhere into my workflow? I think the answer is no. But I wanted to try it for myself to see if it could. I wanted to see, is this a good camera for a beginner? No. Is it a good camera for an advanced amateur or a professional? No. I think what's frustrating is that the camera is capable of delivering a pretty nice photograph. And I have taken some photographs that I quite like with this camera. In fact, I have one of my daughter that I printed on an 11x17, and it looks great. And so the problem for me is just how frustrating and unreliable this camera is. You simply never really are going to be sure that you're going to get a usable, workable image from this camera. You might, but you just as easily might not. You're never going to know why. And so it's hard to recommend as anything other than, almost, and I hate to call it a novelty because it clearly has some really nice qualities to it. But I don't think it's something that, unless you really, really get a very specific use case for it, and really dial it in for that, where you can get consistent results, at that point you probably could get something out of it that was really worthwhile. But why? Why would you do that when there are so many better cameras out there for them? I mean, you can spend far less and get a much better camera. And so I'm torn on it because I really wanted to like this camera. And I think, you know, the factors that go into it for me are just the fact that I don't really like 35 millimeter film, if I'm being honest, all that much. And so going down to half frame, really, I mean, we're just not working with a whole lot here. And so ultimately ends up not being the right camera for me, but it might be, you know, if you're really different than me, it might be a great camera for you. And so I don't want anyone to think like, yeah, you shouldn't do it, but just go into it knowing that this is a frustrating camera. Boy, it's just disappointing. I really wanted to be a Pentaxian. It's been a lifelong dream, and it's just continues to elude me. So anyhow, thank you so much for watching this episode of the Photo Files. This episode of the Photo Files, as always, is brought to you by Metcalf Photography. If you need commercial photography services, family photography services, or some video production in the Northeast, please reach out to the email address that's on the screen or visit my website, metcalfphotography.com, and thank you for watching.